Hello. I added a backdrop because video. This is how you video, man. I was thinking about it and I was like, I vlog and stuff when like little things are happening, and I like putting out videos because I think it's fun, but I don't ever really like do like a sit down talk kind of video because I'm like, oh, I don't have anything to say. Like, there's nothing really interesting going on here or here. And then I thought about it and I was like, you know what though? I have some interesting things that I could talk about. I just don't think they're interesting because they're normal to me. So today I want to talk about my time in prison. And when I say in prison, I was never incarcerated, but I did work in a prison for a while. And so I wanted to just kind of talk about it and like, what's it like to work in a prison? It's not as exciting as it sounds. It's kind of boring, but that's okay. Like, I wanted to talk about some of the things that we go over in your orientation training as well as in your annual training, right? So in annual training, they go over the whole spectrum of things. Basic, like, common sense stuff like, hey guys, don't touch the electric fence or you gonna die, to like, here's what to do if a riot happens. During this training, inevitably, there was always some custody officer who like kind of gave me a hard time because we had a whole segment of keeping other employees accountable, because over familiarity and employee inmate relationships and fraternization is actually a big problem. It's not always a sex, like, stop it. It's not always that, right? But like, when you work with other human beings, as a human being who has empathy, it is natural for you to develop like, I want this person to be okay because they're a person. And that is why, like, that is an okay, like, human to human connection to have with somebody. But how quickly that gets to a point where it kind of crosses a line, it is insane how many people got walked off of the institution grounds while I was working there. It was like, and people you'd be surprised of, like, her, like, I would never suspect. So one of the things in this segment of the orientation training was like how to spot behaviors in your coworkers that were close to inappropriate, not inappropriate, but like, like maybe you want to pull your coworker aside and be like, hey, are you good? Like, one of the things that we often went on in this training was how to spot attention-seeking behavior and attention-seeking appearance. Now, what attention-seeking appearance looks like is really going to depend on like your life experience, because at the time that I worked in prison, I had blue hair. I had blue hair, and I really like really bright clothes, like floral prints and like just patterns and like all kinds of craziness, looking like frickin' Mimi from the Drew Carey Show up in here, just like a lot, just like a lot. So listen, I know that I don't dye my hair, wear makeup, or dress like I should be in an episode of Gem and the Holograms because I want other people's attention. I dress this way and present myself this way because that's what makes me happy. I'm pretty sure anybody who's in like the goth or like alternative kind of scene will tell you, like, it's not like I'm putting on all this junk to like get attention from other people. Like, I genuinely just like it, and like, this is what I want to look like. And it's for me, not for all you. But a lot of the custody officers that were there did not agree with that. It's a really difficult thing to ascertain from like the outside in, because you can have somebody who looks totally normal, totally like office appropriate, but they put all that effort into their appearance because they want validation from other people and not because that's how they want to look. And then you can have somebody like me who might look a little bit unconventional, but I put this much effort into my appearance because that's what makes me happy. So anyways, I was deemed as having attention-seeking behavior at work because of the way that I look. Inevitably, when we went through this training, I was always like flagged as somebody with attention-seeking behavior. There was only one time that I ever went through this training where an officer who actually knew me was training, and so he said, like, again, we're gonna point to me with my blue ass hair, sorry, and we're gonna talk about how I look interesting. And then he said, now, what do you do when you see somebody like this? Well, for me personally, I wanna know what she's about. I wanna talk to her. If you see somebody like that, the best thing to do is to talk to them and like create a human connection with them and look out for them. Like, I thought that was pretty cool. Another thing that I learned in the annual training was the way that you address the people around you when other people are watching is very important. Like the nurses that I worked with, behind closed doors in like restricted areas of the institution, I was joking around with them, calling them cute nicknames like Joob Joob and like all this stuff. But when we were out like anywhere where that was accessible by inmates, it was always, nope, we're gonna keep it professional. The custody officers that I knew, they would, see me, they'd be like, hello ma'am, how you doing ma'am? And then this nanosecond we get into anywhere that inmates are not allowed, they're like, what's up, stat? Like, it's night and day. And that's really important. Because if you address somebody with a sense of familiarity in a situation where familiarity is not appropriate, other people around you who have bad intentions will take that familiarity that belongs to somebody else and they'll adopt it as just, oh, that's part of the environment that we're in, and they'll run with it. This is a good tip for just in general. If you have somebody in your workplace that makes you really, really uncomfortable, it is crucial that you maintain an air of professionalism and non-familiarity when they are around. So if you have coworkers that are friends of yours and you discuss this with them, it's probably a good idea to be like, hey, if this person is around, no jokes will be said. There will be no laughter had here while they are around. We are going to maintain this ice cold, like your fraternization is not welcome here. And it's extremely helpful. It's difficult. It's really difficult to do. If I'm in a room with somebody who's my coworker, who I also consider my friend, it's really difficult to not treat them with a friendly demeanor because we're friends. Okay, let's talk contraband. What are you and what are you not allowed to bring inside of a prison? So the first one might be kind of obvious, might not be. Don't bring your cell phone. Don't bring your cell phone. Because inmates might get it and use it to do things. I don't know. They could do crime things with your phone. The amount of people who brought their cell phone in because they couldn't be away from their freaking phone for 8 hours. What? And then there's another, maybe obvious, maybe not obvious, silverware for your lunch. You cannot just bring in a metal fork and butter knife for your lunch. I know it's a butter knife. And listen, I've seen some shivs that have been made out of some very inventive things. Like, if you want to stab somebody where there is a will, there's a way. But don't bring a butter knife. What the heck? You can't bring those, like, metal thermoses, because they are really heavy and they can be used as a weapon, and they're usually just left sitting on people's desks. And you don't think of these things as like, that's a weapon. You can't just leave something on your desk just all willy-nilly unattended. You have to think to yourself, could someone kill somebody with this? The answer is, surprisingly, in a lot of cases, yeah, they can. Like, there's so many things. You can stab people with so many things. I went to get coffee. For obvious reasons, you couldn't wear anything that was too revealing. And in case it's not obvious, it's because you're going to work every day surrounded by people who have essayed other people. Because I can't say the R word, but we had a lot of those. My institution had a really big mental health ward. A lot of the people that were institutionalized with us were mental health patients, and a lot of them had a lot of impulse control issues, and they, you know, anything that you can do to kind of mitigate that. It's not, I mean, obviously, like, this is weird because this is gonna get in the weeds, because I don't believe that it's my responsibility to dress a certain way so that you act right. But we're talking about people who are wards of the state. In essence, the institution and the employees of the institution are like caregivers. And so it kind of is my responsibility to make sure that I am in check so that you act right. It kind of is my job at that point. It's not my job anywhere else. I'll make that incredibly clear. Anywhere else in the world, it is not my job to dress a certain way so that you can control yourself. But in prison, it is my job to help you learn to control yourself. So I said that very aggressively. But then, like, you also can't wear gray. And gray is my favorite color. I love gray. And before I started working at the institution, all of my clothes were gray because it's my favorite color. And so, I had to buy like a bunch of new clothes just to work there. You can't wear bright red, you can't wear bright blue, you can't wear neon, like neon green or highlighter yellow or anything like that. You can't wear camouflage. But then there would be some officers at the front who would be like, that shade of black is a little bit faded and it kind of looks gray to me if I squint really hard in this lighting, so I need you to go home and change. And it's like, dude, I got this book on my first day. It's called Anatomy of a Setup, Inmate Staff Relations. And it's basically just like stories of how inmates take advantage of staff members, and they take advantage of your like kindness, and they'll take advantage of your politeness, and they'll take advantage of social conventions. And I learned this the hard way, again, in annual training. So I guess I didn't learn it the hard way because I learned it with an officer and not with an actual inmate. So like that's good, that's comforting. But one of the officers was like, okay, let's do a little role play. And he, of course, called on me, Miss Attention Seeking Hair or whatever, and was like, okay, come over here, let's do some like role play or whatever. I'm like, all right, cool. I like a little role play. So get up there, and he's like, okay, what do you do if an inmate says, hello, have a nice day? And I'm like, well, you just say, hey, you too. Like, that's it. And then what do you say if an inmate says, like, hey, you're looking really nice today? I'm like, I don't know. Thanks, have a good one. And he's like, nope. You don't say thank you. Never say thank you. And I, like, every single year, I went to annual training so much. And every single year, I would get called on for this particular role play. And then every single year, I would get it wrong. Because I just naturally, as a person, somebody says, hey, you look nice. I'm like, oh, thanks, man. And thankfully, like, an inmate was never, like, inappropriate with me as far as complimenting my appearance. I did have inmates, like, come up to me and be like, oh, hey, I like your hair. And to me, like, that's not a thing. Like, you know, if I shave the side of my head and I have blue hair and somebody, you know, comes up to me and is like, I like your hair, that looks really cool. Like, that's not inherently sexual. None of that is, like, it's not like an inmate was coming up to me and being like, hey, your ass look good in them slacks. Because then I'd be like, excuse me, sir. Now I need to write you up. This is so much paperwork that I didn't want to do today. To me now, it's like a red flag of like, somebody comes up and compliments your hair. I'm like, what the fuck do you want? I'm so broken now. I've been in the system, man. I worked in prison for too long, now I can't take a compliment. Overall, it was a good experience. I've learned a lot. I think I grew a lot, like, as a person, to just accept the radical transparency of working in a prison where everyone's looking over your shoulder all the time. There are cameras everywhere. Your emails are legal documents that can be subpoenaed. Remember that. And people constantly looking at you and trying to make sure that you don't step out of line. And then there's inmates constantly looking at you, waiting for maybe you're gonna step out of line. That level of scrutiny and that level of pressure is definitely not for everybody. It's difficult. But at the end of the day, I think it was a very, very good, very rewarding experience. I'm glad that I worked there. I'm also glad that I don't work there anymore. That's all. I'll see you guys later. Bye.